few weeks ago, I was invited to a place to talk on politics and beyond, and I absolutely blasted the judiciary. I said, forget about politicians. It's the judiciary that needs to be taken to task. 50 million cases are pending, collegium system, there is so much of backbiting, there's so much of nepotism. And it's not just that the wheels of the judiciary are grinding slowly, they've come to a halt. It's an absolute abomination. And only later I realized that the person sitting next to me who lit the lamp was the Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court. I forgot where my car was parked and I took the Uber and ran from there. And of course, many of you would have been very disappointed to know that the Honorable Governor could not come. I was a bit relieved because last time I was there with him, I said the fellow should be suspended for 3 months. The fact that I'm always invited only once is also kind of very comforting because I can say what I really want to say. And without fear of fervor.
But we want you to say what we want you to say.
And because of paucity of time and because my dear colleague Hiramanji has taken most of our time, so in the true traditions of JNU, I might add, I'm going to make 3 or 4 points. And at the outset, I'm very grateful that our beloved Swapan Da has already mentioned this person called William Dalrymple because I was about to castigate him, but I was very sure if Swapan Da would mind it or not. But I'm very happy that Swapan Da, who represents Bengal and England, and loves Mamata and Margaret in equal measure, had very kind words to say about this backpacker with tattered chappals who's now become a historian. It's not the fact that he's writing books. Everyone is free. It's a free country. You can write whatever trash you want. But the fact of the matter is that recently he was insinuating that only after the wrecks that he saw about the Kalinga War and the devastation that had happened, Ashoka converted or resorted to Buddhism. Without telling the fact, as has been told by Indian historians, especially Sanjeev Sanyal in his monumental book, that Ashoka was already a Buddhist 4 years before he undertook the Kalinga War. This is the sort of misinformation that we've been fed, not just by people who, and Dalrymple has come up with great phrases, I have to say, but the best phrase that has ever been come up is actually to describe Dalrymple. He's been called a giant seal in a kaftan. Nothing more encapsulates Dalrymple than that. The fact of the matter is that such blatant lies have been fed to us for 70 years that I think the time has come to stop blaming the historians and start blaming the politicians. I'm absolutely fed up that we draw the line at some charlatan or some guy who's resorted to writing books on history or what has been happening with our leftist quack historians. Most of them unfortunately belong to the university where both of us come from. I think we have to draw the line because the problem is not the books. Out of every 100 books that are written, 90 are trashy. So does that mean that we should ban them? No, left does that. In fact, Dalrymple was the one at the forefront of cancelling the books that he didn't like. A very famous example happened 2 years ago. No, I think let's stop blaming historians. I firmly believe change happens from the top down. Awakening might happen from the bottom up. But what use is awakening if you are impotent? What is the point of being woken up by having your shoulders shaken? Wake up, this is happening, and you find you can't do anything. So let me give you 4 examples very quickly, keeping the time. Let me do a lot of quoting out here, lest I may be liable to defamation, but thankfully Jay Sai is on the thing, so he'll save me yet again. Last time he only took kachori as a fee. I don't know, maybe idlis this time round. Quote, remembering Maulana Azad on his birth anniversary, he is widely admired for his scholarly nature and intellectual prowess. he remained at the forefront of our freedom movement, working closely with other leading lights, promoting unity and brotherhood. Unquote. This is a quote by Narendra Modi. Now let me quote Maulana Azad. Quote, be extremely hard against kafirs, but extremely kind amongst ourselves, unquote. All relationships in the world can break down. Father can turn against son, brother against brother, mother can shun her child, but the relationship of a Muslim with a Muslim can never be severed, unquote Maulana Azad. I think we are tired of virtue signaling and political correctness. We are tired of blaming people who resort to writing trash about history. Change has to come from top down. And if the topmost person believes this to be the true facet of our history and what is to be taught in our schools, eulogize these people, then I don't think there is any redemption for this country. Quote, met Muslim community delegation. I presented the sacred chadar, which will be placed during the urs of the beloved Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti at the esteemed Ajmer Sharif Dargah, unquote, Narendra Modi. Quote, I will raise these Ansagar Hindu temples to the ground. I have come to India to fight the holy war against infidels, unquote, Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti. The Hanafi Sufi saint who fought alongside the demonic Gauri helped capture Prithviraj and unsparingly converted Hindus. Quote, best wishes to my sisters and brothers of Goa on the day of the feast of Saint Francis Xavier. May this occasion further the spirit of harmony and brotherhood in our society, unquote, by Narendra Modi. Quote, Hindu gods and their idols are as dirty as they are ugly and horrible to look at. Witnessing the destruction of temples and idols gives me so much joy, unquote, Saint Francis Xavier, the chief architect of the Goa Inquisition that led to the conversion, torture, and murder of countless Hindus. Keeping time, I shall allow these quotes to simmer in and kind of go inside your brains and think whether what is it we want for our future generation. To be disallowed, to be able to discern what is a good book or a bad book, or to be able to discern who is a good leader and a leader that is leading us astray by eulogizing the people whose truth should come out. Thank you.
Thank you. Among many thanks that I need to give you, one is for keeping time, and secondly, not at all disappointing in provoking all of us. Thank you very much, Anand. I'll come back to you.
Only one question, will I be ever called again?
That is up to Sudhanshuji, but thank you very much. Now, of course, now, as I said earlier, one and only J. Sai Deepak ji. He doesn't need any introduction, he has been introduced. He has a massive fan following among the young and the old alike. Thank you very much, Sai.
Vande Mataram, Jai Shri Ram. I'm coming directly from the court. It's a Sunday, I know, because we have had a long day of conferences with judges today, hence the colonial avatar. So you've got facts from Dr. Jain, you've got the meta aspect from Swapanda, you've got AK-47 from Anand. Let me just connect all these, because I think that is the advantage of going at the fag end of it. What Swapanda refers to as irreverence is 100% correct, and it's irreverence that comes from being the 90s kid who saw your history being massacred in textbooks. Enough is enough effectively captures our sentiment. From there, you go and you try and arm yourself with knowledge so that you're in a position to disseminate it. Each time you try to present something about your history, the first thing that is missing is empathy, and the first thing that is present is judgment. I don't care for what others think, and this is the sentiment from the Hindu community. So Anand blames politicians, I am blaming the Hindu community. No other community, when presented with this kind of horrendous genocidal massacres that it has survived, reacts with this kind of judgment towards its own ancestors. They were defeated because they were cowards. They were defeated because they lacked Kshatriya spirit. They were defeated because they were divided. They were defeated because they were casteist. They were defeated because they were patriarchal. You can't find nothing positive about your people? What is the point of history if it doesn't take you closer to your people? What is the point of it? If history is meant to be another weapon or a stick that you use to settle scores on social media, burn it. It has no purpose according to me then. If the point is to settle, let's say, debates on social media or in friend circles or to massage your own bloated egos, what is the point of it? How are you remotely doing justice to all the efforts that Dr. Jain has just pointed out? If people shed their blood, their lives, their women, their children, their men, everybody under the sun to protect the Murti, and hundreds of years later, today we have a debate within the Hindu community whether we should take back all the occupied sites. Why should you read history if this is your reaction after becoming aware of the kind of the trouble that we have gone through to recover one place? So what is this about? So is history your weapon to beat the Congress? Is history your weapon to beat the left? Is history a weapon to beat your friend who is a leftist or a Marxist or a communist? Is history a weapon to go closer to your ancestors? Where is the sense of empathy in trying to understand your own people? That is the curse of Indian historiography today. Our reasons for wanting to set right history are fundamentally wrong. Why do you want it in the first place? The opening video that was going on when we sat here, I'm sorry to say this, I mean no disrespect, I found it very difficult to sit through that video. To reduce the sacrifices and the troubles of your ancestors to mere cliches and stereotypes is not done. And the worst part of our history is that it is not in the past, it is a continuing present. The challenges of the past continue today. Perhaps if you were a geographically isolated, let's say, region, so to speak, you can still afford to look at your past with a sense of, let's say, archival sense, in the sense you can look at it, hua tha. So I need to understand in an academic sense, kya hua tha. Everything that has happened is repeating itself. Kaal chakra phir se wahin pe aake khada ho chuka hai. The 1920s, according to me, are no different from the 2020s. The only question that I've been constantly asking myself is, at least at this juncture, will we take the right decision instead of making the mistakes of the past? And therefore, when I look at history, I'm blunt about the fact that I'm looking at weaponizing the Hindu mind. I'm absolutely blunt about it from a societal perspective. If you still don't know how to look out for your interest, you deserve everything that you have suffered and everything that will come your way if you don't learn from it. Somebody has to say this. The politician will not. Somebody else has to say this. I'm the last person as a lawyer to discount the importance of power. I'm the last person to say in the larger picture, in the big picture, in the calculus, it doesn't matter. 100% it matters. This congregation has been made possible because of the change from 2014. Let's admit that. But 2014 was made possible because there was a society yearning. Let's admit that as well. The verdict of 9th of November 2019 was made possible because of 496 years of Jaddojahed. By generations of people who did not know whether they'd be remembered or not. Lawyers will get their visibility. Judges will get their visibility. Who is going to talk of the Nihangs and everybody else who fought for 400 years? There was a time when both these communities were fighting together to protect the Kshetra. Can you say the same thing about Punjab of today? Too uncomfortable a fact? Therefore, history is important for Bharat. I don't care whether history is important for anybody else or not. It's extremely crucial for Bharat. Now let me just share a few points based on what Swapanda pointed out. When he quotes Dalrymple's position on Ashoka being half Greek, why is it that there is this dying need on the part of this white man to look for everything that is white, even in Bharat's history? So there's a fantastic book of Thomas Troutman, you should read it. It's a series of books that he's written on the Aryan invasion theory, its origins. You will never be able to understand the caste debate without understanding the history of Aryan invasion theory and vice versa. Remember that. When you're reading Indian history, that is the thumb rule. So when these people come to this country, they're like, we have colonized so many places. It's like the juggernaut of the Australian team finally being defeated in Calcutta. It comes here, and then it's asked, these guys are boggled. This fellow is black. He is an idol worshipper. He's a polytheist. And still he is culturally and spiritually superior to us. That question is repeated over and over again in their personal correspondence because they're hoping to find a fully inferior civilization, which is a defeated civilization. But a defeated civilization is not necessarily an inferior civilization. That is the realization that leads them to the point. If they are superior in some way, then that superiority must be traced back to us. And hence starts the reverse engineering of Indian history by bringing in the Aryan angle that everything that white stands for victory, and therefore at some point some fellow who was white would have come here, inseminated the blood here, and from there these guys must have become victorious. That is this dying need. So around that period they had something called the Tree of Civilization. The Tree of Civilization is the mapping of different civilization based on their superiority and inferiority, which they had mapped for themselves, and who you think would be at the top of that particular pecking order. It has to be the white man. How is this entire thing worked out? Language becomes the basis for understanding somebody's race. Their inability to wrap their heads around Sanskrit leads to the conclusion that Sanskrit must necessarily be a white contribution and therefore an Aryan contribution. And from there starts the analysis of the Aryan invasion theory. We continue to spew this nonsense in today's Dravidinist politics in the South. This is literally, pun intended, the Bible of the Dravidinists. Because this is what they swear by when they push their agenda of Brahmin versus non-Brahmin, therefore Aryan versus non-Aryan and Dravidian, therefore North Indian versus South Indian. I say this, I've said this before. Separatism of Kashmir at least openly wore the Kalashnikov on its sleeve. Dravidianism uses social justice as a weapon, which is much more dangerous than AK-47, not because I have a problem with the concept of social justice, but anti-Hinduism and anti-Bharatiism is packaged in the fantastic label of social justice warriorship. So my suggestion would be, try to use these platforms as moments of creating more actual, practical, weaponizable scholarship, as opposed to creating cults around anybody. If you're truly a land of seekers, then seek the truth and have the guts to present the truth regardless of who is in power. If you choose not to do that, to quote the adage of the colonizer, you're being penny wise and pound foolish. And in the long run, forget the long run. In the next 25-year cycle, which is supposed to be the touted Amrit Kal, you will see everything that transpired in 1924 leading to 1947 repeat itself. I have no interest in burnishing my secular credentials under any circumstances, regardless of who is in the audience. I'm more interested in securing the safety of my people, and my people are the Hindus, period. If you don't operate with that sense of realism, बेचते रहिए सर्वधर्म वड़ा पाव भाजी. Thank you.
Sai Deepak ji, thank you very much. So anyway, I let me open this question with Swapanda, a very short question, because I had a lot of questions from your book, And in one of the places, quoting Radha Kumud Mukherjee, you eulogize the fact that he and others were looking at the ancient legacy of India, because there is a running thread which I call the pain in all of your presentations, which is the legacy of the past and what do we do about it. Each of us have different solutions and interpretations, but traditionally what Shapanda, you have written there, quoting Radha Kumud Mukherjee, what he thinks about the ancient past, and this is where we need to look at. And what very quickly, let me say what Sai Deepak just mentioned, that there were scholars who always thought that Sanskrit was a gift of the white scholars. There is a lot to say. I can go on speaking for hours and hours. There is evidence of that. But I would like your comment on that. And you have made certain very, very wonderful remarks in your opening remarks.
I think what Sai mentioned about Dravidian ideology is very pertinent in this context. Dravidian ideology not only distorts the history of India, it actually nullifies the existence of India itself. And this is not a new trend. It's just something which has been inherited for a long time, right from the time of the British, who couldn't understand how a nation state born on the model of the Treaty of Westphalia could actually be transported into India, which is based on a completely different cultural, civilizational aspect. Radha Kumud Mukherjee was one of the very few early people, early nationalists, who tried to trace the idea of India, this idea of India which we talk about so much these days, to our old Shastric knowledge.
That's right.
And to a very large extent to our epics. And that text, that lecture which he gave to the University of Mysore in 1924, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Still remains a classic, and that I believe should be made obligatory reading to a lot of people who talk about the idea of India.
Thank you, Shapanda. And just connected to this, Meenakshi ji, you can ask him later. Let me ask you the question that, as I said, all of us are concerned about the narrative which stems from the legacy and how it has been perceived, how it has been mutilated, how it has been presented or appropriated. So this appropriation and rejection is happening constantly in history, and you have given 4 or 5 very important examples. But this narrative of resistance, which Sai Deepak just mentioned, in what way do we intensify intellectually also, particularly here we are concerned with intellectual resistance, because the reparation is too weak a term now for us to use. How do we do it today like you have been doing and these two intellectuals are doing?
See, that resistance was always there right from the advent of the invaders. And it continued even till the colonial rule and thereafter. What happened was that partition took place along religious lines, but unfortunately or fortunately, many of the people who voted for partition opted to stay in India. So that was a problem that left group of historians, they tried to address that problem by negating that
The past.
previous 1,000 years and saying there was Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb and the rulers were all the time trying to accommodate. But how long can you go on fudging the past? I think now the time has come when people are refusing to accept all this that has been taught to them, and people on the ground, they are taking things into their own hands. They don't need validation from anyone. They are doing what they think has to be done.
Yeah, I would agree to some extent, but what Sai Deepak just said, that it is those of us who read and interact in public spheres and read in the books and newspapers are, of course, trying to reject in certain sense. And quite rightly, as Sai Deepak said, that no, if you want to fight this war on social media in a way that is being fought, perhaps it is futile. But there is still more. Resistance was always there, but how do we convert it into a path towards victory?
I think that resistance, the idea of that resistance was never lost among the common people. And that is there, and they are pushing the narrative forward. They don't need recommendations from people like us.
Thank you. And just connecting it to what I wanted to ask and provoke Anand further was that, of course, I want you to, of course, you have quoted which are quotable quotes and powerful quotes, but I want to go back to your book which you have recently published. And in that sense, Sai Deepak and you somehow come together to see what actually we see ourselves as Hindu in India and Hindu civilization. What is it that we need further to do to see that this kind of narrative is much more widespread and intellectually more intense than what we find it today?
Thank you, Dada. I made sure that I would not be invited again. Let me make sure that there's an ED raid on me tomorrow. Because the fact of the matter is that I have 99.9% agreed with Sai always. I'm not just saying this because he's my brother. But here I disagree with him. And when he says, when I blame the politicians, the very top, and he blames the Hindu society.
Us.
No, you have no powers. You're not a politician.
No, Hindu.
Plus, you're honest, so you can't be a politician. You're just a JNU professor. No, but to come back to this, when Sai says the problem is not about the politician not doing what he's supposed to do, the problem is the Hindu society. He puts the blame on the Hindu society. So I ask him point blank, no one is as aware of what needs to be done to emancipate the Hindus, to remove the discrimination than Jai Sai, then Vishnu Jain, then Hari Jain, then Meenakshi Jain, then so many others. No one. But what has happened in the last 10 years? The society is awakened through these giants. Has the Places of Worship Act been abrogated? Has the Waqf Act been abrogated? Have the Kashmiri Hindus been rehabilitated? Have the Places of Worship Act been abrogated? None of those things have happened. Who is responsible for making those things happen? That is why I believe that you can awaken as much as you want. As much as you want. Ultimately, if the person who is right at the very top is not awakened, nothing is possible.
Thank you very much. And that, Shobhandar, yes, we have time, yes.
I think this deserves a certain rebuttal. The idea that we are confronted with an insensitive political leadership which is completely unaware of the impulses of the Hindu community is, to my mind, an extremely lopsided argument. Today, the legitimacy of the claims of the Kashmiri Pandits have been recognized. Article 370 has been revoked. This didn't happen because society wanted it. This happened because political people took the initiative and did it. The Ram Mandir was built, yes, there was a lot of abeg on the part of people, there were a lot of impulses on the part of people, but the crucial step of ensuring that it was done, the manner it was done, that there was no last minute resistance, was at the behest of the political people. So the contribution of political people may sometimes be inadequate at times, but they are certainly quite important in the transformation of the India and in the awakening of India, of Hindus as we see it.
Yeah, well, just a few seconds.
10 seconds.
Less than 30 seconds, yes.
Less than, of course.
Yeah, not your 30 seconds, no.
I of course, Swapanda, I agree with him. But I would have this to say, and I forgot about the temples being under state control continuing for the last 10 years. But besides that, I think what he makes is a very important point. What I would say is that when things are morally and ethically right, patience is not a virtue. For how long will Hindus wait? I admire the resilience of the politicians. I admire the fact that they know what needs to be done. It's just that why should we be eternally patient like Nandi outside Kashi Vishwanath waiting for 400 years?
And one sentence from Shobhandar, yes.
You
Yes.
400
Yeah,
seats
Shobhandar.
and talk about impatience. You give 400 seats and then you talk about
Yeah, absolutely. Now, finally, I want to come to Sai Deepak, and I want to change the topic a little, which you haven't touched, maybe because of the paucity of time, and your contribution about Sabarimala is known to everybody. I just want you to explain how do you square that circle, which some people say, of course, I understand it, I am on your side, but some people think, why do you have to have a ban of certain kind of people in a temple which should belong to everybody?
The problem is I've taken a conscious decision not to use any of my temple cases as calling cards. Because one, it seems then that I'm milking the temple cause for a personal gain. And that's something as a lawyer I'm extremely wary of. And even as a person I'm extremely wary of. All I can say without getting into the merits of the issue is that the division within the Hindu community is there with respect to this temple exposes the fundamental Christianization of the Hindu mind, wherein it fails to wrap its head around the diversity of energy spaces within Hindu dharma. That's one. But you see, the one important conversation in this entire thing that needs to be bridged and addressed, and here I'll play the peacemaker between Swapanda and Anand, is just this. The fact of the matter is, fortunately or unfortunately, there is only one political vikalp as far as Hindu interest is concerned as on date. From a larger Hindu perspective, is that good for us? According to me, no. But there is a difference between what should be and what is. The situation today is this. These are the cards on the table at this point. Now, how do you then make sure that your causes become attractive to the politician? I will proceed on the basis that you have a certain conscientious political establishment in power, but it is equally important for them to cater to incentives, because at the end of the day, politics functions on incentives. Now, therefore, there is a part, let's say idealism, and then there is a part which is, let's say, purely political in nature. The efforts that people like me, and I don't wish to include me in this, there are others who are full-timers in this, I'm a 10% part-timer in that sense, is that we are trying to create a critical mass of opinion that translates to two things, one of two things: pressure which results in incentive, or pressure that results in disincentive. It's not rocket science, there's nothing that is close to my chest that I have to hide. This is exactly what's been going on. The hope is that with each passing term, apart from economics, we also address civilizational legacy issues, because that's equally important for political survival. Because when I speak of illegal migration, it's not an academic issue. It affects everybody who's in power, and it affects Hindu existence. When I speak of alienation of Hindu land, it affects everybody, because then it is encroachment of our spaces. There's a reason why Ujjain is surrounded by everybody else. Kashi is surrounded by everybody else. Then you go to Kalikamba temple in Chennai, it's surrounded by everybody else except Hindus. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is that there is a very clear intersection or overlap where the political interest meets the societal interest. It would help if both of them speak with each other, listen to each other, if there is a feedback loop and there is a handshake between both sides. Because as I said, I'm a realist. Power is important, but power for its own sake without delivery is equally not, it's not desirable, because then the question is, there was a purpose for which these votes have come your way, so perhaps you should push the envelope as much as possible. I think it's a setting of expectation more than a grievance. That's what
Thank you so much. And much that I would want us to go on talking to them, and perhaps some of the questions from the audience would have been much more insightful than questions coming from me. I want to thank you all. I know at least 10 ideas have come today. I have counted them all from 4 people. And these 10 ideas, of course, if you take them with you and digest them, and probably we will have an opportunity to talk to them again, maybe at Sudhanshuji's forum or somewhere else. But thank you very much for being patient and listening to us. And I want to thank you all individually. I know you all very well, at least up to 3 people. Sai Deepak, I know you from your writings and your television appearances. Thank you so much for this session.